Right now, while I am recording this, someone somewhere is withdrawing cash from an ATM. Another person is checking their pension balance. A government agency is processing a benefits claim. A bank is settling an interbank transfer. And somewhere in the background of all of it, almost certainly, there is COBOL running. COBOL, a programming language designed in 1959, older than the Internet, older than the microprocessor, older, in fact, than most of the people who are supposed to be maintaining it. And yet it processes more than 220 billion transactions every single day, more than Google handles in search queries. More than $3 trillion in financial transactions flow through COBOL-based systems worldwide, every single day. Welcome back to the Language Foundry podcast. I am Luigi Rondanini, and today we are going to talk about why that is, what it means, and, most importantly, what you actually do about it. I always like starting with those numbers because they do something important. They immediately end the conversation that begins with, is COBOL not just a dead language? It is not dead, it is foundational. Those are very different things. So let me go back to the beginning. For those who have never encountered it, what actually is COBOL? COBOL stands for Common Business-Oriented Language. It was designed in 1959, largely under the influence of Grace Hopper, who was a US Navy Rear Admiral and one of the most important figures in computing history. The explicit goal was to create a language that non-programmers could read, that business people, accountants, managers, administrators could pick up a printout and understand what the code was doing. So it reads almost like English, very verbose, very explicit, there are no clever tricks, no abstract patterns, just direct, readable statements about what the program should do. For example, and I will describe this rather than show it since we are on audio, a typical COBOL paragraph might say, compute the risk score equals the number of days overdue times 0.5 plus the outstanding balance divided by the credit limit times 100 minus the years as a customer times 2. If the risk score is greater than 75, move high to the risk category field. Else, if greater than 40, move medium. Else, move low. You can follow that without knowing anything about programming. That was the point. And it worked beautifully for its era. Banks, insurance companies, government agencies, they adopted it en masse through the 1960s and 1970s. Every payroll system, every account ledger, every claims processing engine got written in COBOL. So it was successful precisely because it was readable. And yet today, organizations tell us they cannot understand their COBOL systems. So what went wrong? Nothing went wrong with the language itself. What happened is that time passed, 60 years of it. Business rules that started as clean, readable paragraphs got modified, extended, patched, and worked around by hundreds of different programmers over decades. You end up with code that has 20 layers of conditional logic, variables named with 3-letter abbreviations from 1974, and business rules that reflect regulations that have since been superseded, but nobody deleted them because nobody was sure what would break. And the people who held all of that context in their heads, who knew that a particular calculation flag is only set during quarter-end processing for accounts in certain EU jurisdictions, they retired, or they are retiring now. I call this the retirement cliff. The average age of a working COBOL programmer today is somewhere above 55. The universities stopped teaching it in the 1990s. So there is a generation of people in their late 50s and 60s who are the last people who genuinely understand these systems, and they are walking out the door. For any single organization, This might mean 3 or 4 critical people, and when they leave, they take institutional knowledge with them that is not documented anywhere, not in the comments, not in wikis, not in test suites. It is just in their heads. The real risk is not that COBOL is old. The real risk is that the knowledge inside it is becoming inaccessible. You may remember the New Jersey story. It made international news. Here is the governor of New Jersey going on television during a national emergency in April 2020, asking if any retired COBOL programmers could please come help. Because the unemployment system, which suddenly needed to process claims at 20 times its normal rate, was running on 1970s COBOL, and there was essentially nobody left who knew how to change it quickly. And New Jersey is not an outlier. That situation exists in varying degrees of severity at banks across Europe, at insurance companies, at government departments, at pension funds. The systems are running fine. The moment you need to change something for a new regulation, for a product change, for a compliance audit, you discover how little institutional understanding remains. Now let me talk about DORA. The EU's Digital Operational Resilience Act came into force at the start of 2025, and it changes the calculation significantly. It moves from "we should probably understand our legacy systems better" to "we are legally required to demonstrate that we understand and can govern our ICT assets," including the ones written in COBOL in 1978. DORA requires financial institutions to identify and document all ICT assets, to assess and manage risks on an ongoing basis, to report major incidents within defined timeframes, to demonstrate operational resilience to supervisory authorities. If your institution cannot fully explain what a critical COBOL system does, if you cannot produce documentation, test coverage, an audit trail of what changed and when, that is now a material compliance gap, not just a technical debt problem. So what does Language Foundry actually do about this? We start from a very clear principle. We are not trying to eliminate COBOL. We are trying to make it understandable. What we have built is a deterministic transpiler, a system that reads COBOL source code, the actual production code, and produces a semantically equivalent representation in modern languages like Java or Python. Deterministic means that for a given piece of COBOL, you always get the same output. No randomness, no AI hallucination, no probably equivalent. Either the outputs match under testing, or we tell you they do not. That generated code is not just for running, it is for reading, for testing, for documentation, for onboarding a new developer who has never seen COBOL, for satisfying an auditor, for the business analyst who needs to find where a regulatory rule is implemented. Let me explain how the Transpiler actually works. At its core, it is a grammar-based system. We define a formal grammar for COBOL and build a parser that reads source code and produces a structured representation of what the program means, not just what it says. From that structure, an emitter generates equivalent code in the target language, and then we verify. We run the original COBOL and the generated code against the same test inputs and compare outputs. If they match, we have evidence of equivalence. The key word is deterministic. We are not asking a language model to guess what the code does. We are parsing it formally, transforming it structurally, and verifying the result empirically. That is the only approach that gives you something you can stake a compliance audit on. Now, COBOL has some genuinely distinctive features that deserve attention. Packed decimal arithmetic, a way of storing numbers that was designed for financial calculations and is extremely precise. Redefines clauses. where the same area of memory is interpreted as different data types depending on context. Copybooks, shared data structure definitions included across many programs. And the data division, where variables are defined with picture clauses specifying their exact format. For each of these, we build what we call a runtime library, functions and classes that replicate the behavior faithfully. So when the transpiler encounters packed decimal arithmetic, it emits a call to our runtime that implements the same numeric behavior COBOL uses, not a floating point approximation. The goal is always semantic equivalence, not look similar, the same thing, verifiably. Let me walk you through what a typical engagement looks like. An organization has a legacy COBOL application. Let us say it is the core of their loan processing system. It has been in production for 30 years. It works. Nobody touches it unless they absolutely have to. The 3 people who originally wrote it are long gone. The immediate trigger is often a regulatory requirement or a planned integration. Maybe they are building a new API layer and need to understand what calculation the COBOL is actually doing. Maybe DORA compliance review has surfaced this system as a critical asset with inadequate documentation. We start with the source code. We run it through our pipeline. We get a readable Python or Java equivalent, with documentation generated alongside. We then build a test suite that runs both the original and the generated code against representative inputs and validates that they produce the same outputs. At the end of that process, the organization has something they did not have before: an understandable, testable, documented representation of what their system actually does, not a guess. A verified, structured, readable version of the business logic. And in most cases, the COBOL keeps running. We are not proposing a big bang cutover. The value we deliver is understanding. Documentation, auditability, the ability to onboard new staff, the ability to satisfy regulators. The decision about whether to eventually replace the COBOL is the client's to make. But having that generated, tested, equivalent code also means that migration, if they choose it, becomes much lower risk. Because you have already proven the equivalence, you already have a test suite, you already understand what you are migrating. Let me close with 3 things I think anyone listening to this should be thinking about right now, whether you work at a bank, an insurance company, or a government department. First, count the people. How many individuals in your organization genuinely understand each of your critical COBOL systems? If the answer is 3 or fewer, and any of them are over 55, you have a business continuity risk that is not adequately managed. Second, map the unknowns. The dangerous systems are not the ones everyone is worried about. Those at least get attention. The dangerous ones are the quiet systems that run reliably in the background, that nobody has touched in years, and that everyone assumes someone else understands. Third, start with documentation, not migration. The instinct, when confronted with legacy risk, is often to propose a rewrite. Resist that instinct. Start by understanding what you have. Document it, test it, make it readable. The decision about what to do next becomes much clearer once you can actually see what you are dealing with. If any of that resonates, I would like to talk. The details are at languagefoundry.io. These conversations matter. The more people understand what is actually running underneath the financial system, the better the decisions we collectively make about it. That is it for episode 2. Subscribe, share it with someone who works in financial services or government IT, and I will see you in episode 3.